Hey, listeners, it's Kara, your host. After 176 amazing episodes and hundreds of book recommendations, I wanted to make it a little bit easier for you to find your next great read. The Bookish Lights Roadmap is your guide to all 175 podcast episodes, sorted by genre so you can quickly find the stories that fit your reading mood. From picture books to adult novels and everything in between, it's the perfect way to explore past episodes and discover new favorites. You can find your copy of the Bookish Lights Roadmap at www.bookishlights.com/read/roadmap, or just click the link in the show notes. Hi, I'm Kara Infante, and this is Bookish Flights, a podcast where we tell our stories through our favorite books. Each episode features a bookish guest where we will talk about reading, life, and the seasons we're in, all through a thoughtfully paired book flight of recommendations for you. If you're looking for meaningful book recommendations and a space to slow down, you're in the right place. In today's episode, I am chatting with Lynn Paulson. Emily is the author of Highlight Reel, Finding Honesty and Recovery Beyond the Filtered Life, Hey Hun, Sales, Sisterhood, Supremacy, and the Other Lies Behind Multi-Level Marketing, and the thriller, The Revenge Party. Through 2 TEDx talks and frequent media appearances, including The Today Show, The New York Times, The Washington Post, The Seattle Times, The Chicago Tribune, Next Question with Katie Couric, and The Tamron Hall Show, Emily has become a clear-eyed commenter on resilience, belonging, and the complicated economies of modern womanhood. Welcome to the show, Emily.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, I am so excited to have you. I finished up The Revenge Party this weekend, so I'm so excited to chat with you about it. Well, I'd love to start with, tell us a little bit more about who you are, because I feel like we are so much more robust than these bios that we have.
Yes, I know when you read it, I'm like, who is that again? Um, so I am, yes, I'm an author. I kind of came to be an author in a roundabout way. I am formally trained as a chemist. That was my
Wow.
job
Okay.
out of college. And then I went back to school to get my master's in teaching, thinking it would be, a better path for someone who wanted children. I taught high school chemistry for a year, was pregnant, and then stayed home. And so I was stay-at-home mom for a very long time. And in that time, a lot of things happened with my life. I joined a multi-level marketing company, which is where my second book came from. I got sober, which is where my first book came from. And then through those experiences of writing the books, I really, just realized this is kind of what I want to do. And I switched to fiction because one, I was sick of talking about myself. And also, I just love reading, and I love that you can really, even though it's fiction, you can really kind of work through things and bring some things to life that you're feeling, which is really how the Revenge Party came about, was just writing about kind of things that were going on in the world and getting those things out through my writing. So yeah.
Yeah, and you can have that commentary right there, right through the
Hmm.
fictional
Yep.
realm, but still be able to talk about it.
Yes, exactly.
Have you found with motherhood that writing has fit into that very well?
I don't think that I would have been able to write a book when they were little.
Yeah.
I have 5 very close in age. So, once they got to the age where, they're not gonna like, fall down the stairs or like, out of the toddler years,
Yeah.
it got a lot easier. And now that they're, I'm getting towards empty nester. I've got 2 who've flown the coop and 3 still home who, sometimes want to hang out with me and sometimes want to pretend I don't exist. I do have more time to write. So, that's one thing that people say, like, oh my gosh, I don't know how you write with so many kids. And I'm like, well, they're older. So,
Yeah.
but I also feel almost more obligated to do it too. Like with now that they are older, I feel like there are more topics that I want to cover and I want to dive into, and it's almost made the drive even stronger, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've talked about it so much on the show. To give you a little background, I'm a military spouse, and so many in my audience are military spouses as well, and we have to constantly reinvent ourselves, and I feel like we're always trying to find something that can fit the lifestyle. Right.
Right.
And so that's why I kind of asked that question. And
Yeah.
because as we know, finding time in motherhood can be very challenging.
Yeah. And like you, I have a traveling husband. He's not in the military, but he
Yeah.
is gone a lot and it's not a set schedule. It's so having that, when you're the person who is running the family, um, it can be hard to say, I don't necessarily have a set hour in the day that I'm writing or 2 hours or whatever. It's just I kind of fit it in where I can.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The complete flexibility of it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for listeners that maybe haven't read The Revenge Party yet, let's tell them a little bit about it.
So the revenge party came about because my best friend who lives in Seattle had this crazy thing happen to her with her ex-husband. That's really the inciting incident in the book.
Okay.
And she was like, you should write about this. I was like, well, I'm not going to write your story. But then I was like, well, gosh, this would make a really great inciting incident in a novel. And so that's kind of where the idea started. I didn't necessarily know where it was going. It went through a lot of iterations, but it really was this idea of kind of this female fury, this feminist rage that I was seeing and feeling, with
Yeah.
everything happening in the last couple of years. And I went with it. So, it's about women who get a revenge their own way. There's a political component to it, sort of tying in things that I saw, after the pandemic with, anti-vax wellness and how easy it is to get roped into some of these beliefs,
Yeah.
and how easy it is to really go to these really extreme views. And really how women get roped into this, carrying water for the patriarchy and all of that. So, I mean, I know that's not like the summarized like book jacket, but that's really where
Yeah.
that's where my feelings about it came from. And it sort of just took on a life of its own. I also wanted to talk about how, you know, being a mom and holding all these complicated feelings while you're feeling like you're holding the world up, it feels like there's more of a responsibility there. And so, that's why uh, it's easy for me to say, but I feel like it's, deeper than I think some thrillers that I read, where I really
Yeah.
wanted to bring in that women's fiction through line. That you had the generational trauma and the relationships with mothers and the relationships between women. I didn't want it to just be pure thriller. So there definitely is, there's some spice in it. There's a lot of the other good things that I love to read, and I
Yeah.
tried to fold it all in. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's I think what we tend to do, right? We gravitate towards what we enjoy reading, and I think that's a great way of doing it. Was what was the hardest part of this book for you to write?
You know, I don't know if it was the hardest part, but initially there, um, well, I don't, without giving away any spoilers, it was cozier the first round.
Okay.
And so putting in like someone has to die. That's one thing my editor said was like, I think someone has to die. And I was like, oh, and
Yeah.
then I really had to wrap my head around it. And by the time I got through that process of kind of changing that arc, I was like, oh, she was so right. Like someone needed to die. So that I wouldn't say that was, I think that made it better, but I think that was the hardest for me conceptually to get around because I had so married my idea to like everyone can change and we don't, whatever. Like, no, they needed to die. So at the end of the day, it was very satisfying.
Yeah. Which would be a growth process
Yeah,
probably too, right?
yeah, for sure.
How was that switching? Because your first two books were, like you said, more memoir driven, more about you. How was that switching then to the fiction side of it?
So it was, nonfiction and fiction are different in a lot of ways, obviously. But as far as like the pitching process, with nonfiction, you sell an idea of a book. You make a book proposal and you're like, this is what I'm going to write about. And
Yeah.
so in that regard, it's a lot easier because, you can sell based on concept. And then the hard part starts. Then you sell it and then you
Yeah.
have to write the book. But with fiction, you have to write the whole thing. And so really put yourself on the line. Like it's a lot of time, it's a lot of energy to think like, gosh, maybe no one will buy this. You have to have
Yeah.
the whole thing done. So that obviously is different and it feels a little more vulnerable, I think. At least that's how I felt. It's like, oh my gosh, you put so much time and energy into this, and it's not something that people can say, yeah, I like this concept, but change this and this. And that's no big deal because you haven't written it yet. Once you've written something and they're like, yeah, no, yeah, no, no,
Yeah.
it's just like, ugh. But after the writing process, the 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 part I'm in now, which is the reviewing, the feedback, the public comments, it's so much better this time around
Yeah.
because with nonfiction, whether people mean it to be or not, the feedback is very personal because it is
Yeah.
your life you're
Your
writing
story.
about. Yes,
Hmm.
it's your story. Whereas with fiction, it's like if they don't like the story, it's like, well, it's not my, whatever. You don't like my writing, you don't like my technique, like that's fine. But
Yeah, just not for you.
yes.
Yeah.
So that has been much easier this time around. And I enjoyed it more. If I never have to do another end note, having to having to do like in the back the references and stuff, like that was nice to not have to do. Um, and also just being able to really be creative. Like it doesn't have to be totally accurate. It's
Yeah.
fiction. It's like, oh, did this police procedural go the right way? It's like, doesn't matter. Like
Yeah.
this is
The
the way I want it to
freedom.
go. Yeah, a lot more freedom. And there are some, characters in there who are maybe true to some people in real life that were really fun to bring to life, like friends whose personalities, things they said. Um, yeah, it was really fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I had just this week actually an episode came out. I'm sorry, it was last Friday, so I'm still promoting it. But she was a professor and she's written a ton academically, but she had her first novel come out and she talked about that very similarly. Like would spend weeks writing for something that was or researching for something that would be a footnote.
Hmm.
And she's like, in the fiction realm, I could just be like, well, it's not quite true to this timeline, but that's
Yeah,
okay because it's fiction. Doesn't
I
need to
know.
be
It's great. It's
the
great.
freedom of that. So I'm like, I could see where that would be really, really challenging.
Yeah.
What is your hope for readers? What do you hope they'll take away when they pick up this book?
I mean, I hope they just enjoy it. My number one, I hope it's entertaining. And I hope they can see themselves a little bit in it too. As far as just that feeling, I think a lot of women are having the last, 2024 till now, and not knowing what to do in some cases. Um, and just having an escape and a satisfying feeling at the end of a book. So really, I hope to entertain and I hope women enjoy it.
Yeah. And like you said, maybe there's some other themes in there that maybe you'll think about a little bit more as
Yeah.
you're reading it. So, did your perspective change? And I guess this might be a harder question because the listeners might not have met the characters yet, but did your position or perspective of the characters change as you were writing them?
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think they s- there were some that were very likable in the beginning and less likable, which
Yeah.
happens obviously, but when it's a character you're creating, um, to have to write an unlikable character that someone still wants to read can be challenging.
Yeah.
And to put those red herrings in there without people just setting it down like, oh my God, this character is insufferable.
Yeah.
How to make someone seem like, gosh, I don't know how I feel about this lady. And then realize, oh wow, oh wow, oh I love her. Like to do that evolution is
Yeah.
tricky when you know where the character's gonna go.
Yeah.
So I think that was a challenging part for me. But overall, I think with having to add in the non-cozy part, it I had to put myself in the mindset to really hate certain characters, and that paid off in the end. So
Yeah. Absolutely. And there were so many layers to this story. Do you outline most of it ahead of time or do you kind of write as you go? How do you add all of those pieces in and make sure
yeah.
they connect?
So tragically, I am a plotter. Like
Okay.
I am a big time plotter, and I'm sure you've had people on here talk about plotter
Yeah.
or pantser. Like I wish I could just sit down and just like start. Like I don't know what's going to come next. I am tragically, tragically a plotter. I am like, I mean, I have one open. Like I'm looking at my desktop right now for my next book. It's, times like years when things happen. For me, I have to know where I'm going.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean necessarily like I know what the last chapter is going to be or know what the midpoint's going to be, but I have a general idea of the arcs. And I just have to know for myself, timeline wise, like how old is this person going to be here? Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Um, Whether that later gets completely thrown out the window, and it usually does, like things always change. I need that to start. And so for me, like it takes a lot more for me to get going, I think, than some like pantsers. But then once I have that down, I'm pretty good to go.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I always knew from the beginning of the story, I knew the basic twist. I knew the inciting incident. Everything else kind of changed. Everything I plotted over and over and over. And one thing I do, which if any like plotters are listening to this, that has really helped me is I print out a calendar of the year, or it doesn't even have to be as specifically dated, but just like January, February, March of when the book takes place, when the story takes place.
That's a
And then
great idea.
I put these little sticky notes on it. And I'm like, chapter one, chapter two, chapter three. So then I can move them around. Because if I'm like, oh, shoot, too much time has passed between those things, that doesn't make sense, or not enough time has passed, I can kind of shift everything. And
Yeah.
that's like my number one tip if you're like a massive plotter with the sticky note types and the whiteboard. That's really helped me a lot. So,
Yeah. Well, and I'm thinking of myself who cannot grasp the electronic calendar. Like, even in
oh,
just
yeah,
everyday life, I'm like, I love my wall calendar. I
same,
need to visually see what is coming down the pike. Like,
same.
looking at my calendar on my phone, I cannot plan like for three children and
Yeah,
and a husband. I'm like, I cannot do that. I need to
it's too
have my
much.
wall calendar. So I could see where if I was a writer, I would need to have that
Yeah.
as well. Cause I'm like, I just cannot. I can't it does not make sense in my brain.
No. Well, and I think for me too, like, because so much of this book is about what's happening in the world outside of the
Yeah.
characters, like I need to know what's going on in the world. And so if I can look back into, like Katie, the one of the main characters, like in her childhood and be like, okay, well, what was she raised with? What like that really helps me
Yeah.
shape the characters. Like obviously she's my age, and so I can kind of think about, okay, what was life like for me in those days? What was it like in Seattle in those days? And then for Izzy, the other character who's a lot younger than I am, I really had to tap into like the timeline of her life and what would have been like for her, being raised through these certain things. And,
Yeah.
I think it's something I have to do to even visualize who the characters are.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's got to be the way our brains work, right? Because they all work
Yes.
differently. And that's
Oh,
probably
yeah.
why we have plotters versus pantsers, right? There's
Yep.
just maybe you're more left brain or right brain and whatever that means. I'm not,
Something. Yeah.
yeah, I'm not recalling
It's
all the
some
things that would,
diagnosis, I'm sure.
but that just means that's the way our brain works. And
Yeah.
that's how we would have to think about it.
Yeah.
So, well, what did you learn about yourself through writing this book?
That is a really good question. I mean, I learned that I really, really love writing fiction and I want to write more of it.
Yay.
And I learned that everything I wrote about kind of led to another idea. And that was cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I learned like that I'm doing what I should be doing.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
finally found your calling here. I
Yes.
guess if we want to put it in that very general terms there.
Yes.
So, who would you say that this book is perfect for?
I think any woman and any person, uh, woman, man, non-binary, anything, who has felt a certain way in the last couple of years.
Perfect. I love it. Well, let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about who you are as a reader. So, what books and genres are you gravitated towards and what do you enjoy reading?
I really am all over the board. I love thrillers because they're quick
Yeah.
and that's, I was interested in writing thrillers because of that. But I love historical fiction. I love nonfiction. I'm looking at my bookcase behind me. Yeah, a lot of memoirs, a lot of thrillers. And then I always get the bestsellers and, kind of I like to see what's popular and then I have a lot of author friends. So whatever they
Yeah.
are writing, I read their stuff. So literally everything.
Yeah. Nothing's on, everything is on the table.
Yes.
How, in your busyness, do you find time to read?
I'm a big audiobook person. Big audiobook person. So I drive to see my daughter in college. I've got another one going to college next year, and we're going on college trips. I've
Yeah.
got another one going the year after that. So like I feel like we're always in the car. We got comp cheer, sports, all of that stuff. Um, and just driving to school every day in 5 or 10 minutes here and there, I always have a book going. And then I always have an audiobook and a physical book going at the same time. The physical
Yeah.
book sometimes takes longer, but then when I go on vacation, I'm a book a day person. So
Yeah.
anytime I'm out of town, I've always got a suitcase of clothes and books.
Yes,
Yeah.
I find this to be such a conundrum all the time because I'm like, well, I don't really need to bring four books. Like that would
Mhm.
probably be a little excessive, but I like to have a nonfiction book and a fiction book going at the same time, and I like to have options. And so
Yep.
it is always like, how many books do I pack? Like
Yeah.
every time I travel, it is a challenge.
And once I start, like once I have a book and then I'm done with it, I'm like, I need another book, if I'm sitting there
Yeah.
by the pool or whatever. And so I always bring more than I think I need, and I usually get through all of them.
Yeah, we just did a spring break trip and I had two books that I was prepping for episodes for, but I was like 150 pages into both of them. And I was
Yeah.
like, well, I'm not going to bring those because I'll finish them on the trip. And I didn't want to have I have to then bring them back with me in the suitcase of a book that was already done. So
Yes.
it was this whole like, how do I
Choices.
know? I know. And everybody's like, just bring your Kindle. I'm like, I know, but I also really like having a physical
I
book.
do
So I've got to
too.
have the
I do
option.
too. Well, and I always forget to charge the Kindle. Like it's the whole, I have the wrong cord or whatever. Like
Yeah.
that's my problem with the Kindle. I know. So it's usually audiobook, physical book. I have both going at the same time.
There you go. Well, I ask all the guests to bring three books in the form of a book flight. Can you tell us how you chose your books today?
Yes. So the next book I'm working on now is about an influencer family. And so I'm
Okay.
just very interested in that whole world. And so, okay. So the first book, this is a friend of mine, Tessa Toffee, like, follow, subscribe. So it's nonfiction and it's about, kids who are growing up and have now grown up and been influencer kids their whole lives and like how that's affected them. And it's
Interesting.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Yes. So that was like, okay, I need to read more stuff like this. And then I read The Well-Trained Wife by Tia Levings
Okay.
is the next one. And I've actually read that before. I'm rereading it now. And she's got another one coming out, I Belong to Me, but it's about her leaving a fundamentalist religion. I'm really interested in cults and all that stuff. I mean, I
Yeah.
wrote an MLM book, so that's I've done a lot of research in that. But just really like uh, the idea of kind of living in this world, sort of like, the influencer, where you're in this very closed environment and how that affects you and how you can get out of it. And right now I'm almost done with Yesteryear. So all of these do tie in together.
Yeah.
I had no idea what Yesteryear was about when I got it on Spotify. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is just like what I'm thinking of how the influencer life is meant to look like this old-timey, old-fashioned, but then when she's plopped in the real old-fashioned world, like it doesn't match up. Anyway,
Yeah.
fascinating, fascinating. So anyway, those are my three.
Yes, I love it. The moment you said like these are based off influencer families, I was like, oh yes, I can see why you chose Yesteryear. I have not read it yet myself, but I'm seeing it
Oh my
everywhere.
gosh. Yeah.
And yeah, it looks really interesting. So definitely will
Yeah.
have to pick that up. I feel like, as you were talking about the first book, the Like, Follow, Subscribe by Fortessa Latifi, right? I was like having these influencer children growing up. I mean, I guess it's probably been going on for longer than I think, but I'm like, this
Oh
is such
yeah.
a new thing.
Yeah.
There can't be many books out there like that at this point because there
No.
just hasn't been time to write them
Yeah, I mean,
or study it.
she was out there, she's a journalist and she was out there like interviewing these kids, now adults, who were like, "Hey, how has this affected you?" And like they're not okay. Being
Yeah.
being raised online and being, having no choice in the matter. And I think that's the biggest part for me that I'm like, gosh, you can ask a child, do you want to do this? And it's still an unfair question because you're their parent,
Yeah.
right? And that how can you consent to something that you don't necessarily understand the repercussions of? and that cost of having a digital footprint. I think about being a teenager in the 90s and I'm like, "Phew, thank God there were no camera phones,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And now kids have to think about everything, even if they're not an influencer family. But if you're famous, you have all these strangers judging what you're doing. I mean, it fascinates me.
Yeah. And that would probably be the closest thing we could compare it to because we've seen the childhood celebrities and then how it
Hmm.
really has disrupted kind of
Yeah,
their life and them as adults and living in the
yeah,
limelight has been so challenging for them. And we definitely have seen that.
yeah,
So this is probably
yeah.
just the next realm. So The Well-Trained Wife by Tia Levings, can you give us a little teaser about what that one is about?
Yeah, I mean, she really believed she was doing all the right things. Raised very fundamentalist religious, married the fundamental religious guy.
Okay.
But it was really this belief of like, it's kind of what you're seeing now on Instagram, this resurgence of like, I'm going to be the submissive wife and I'm going to submit to my husband and he's the leader and he's going to vote
Yeah.
for the family and he's going to control everything. And just how difficult that was and what it really looked like on the
Okay.
inside.
So is it a
How
memoir then?
it's a memoir, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Perfect. All
Yep.
right.
And then how she got out of it. And then again, her next book that's coming out, I haven't read yet. It's coming out soon. I Belong to Me. So it's kind of an offshoot of like what happened after that.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, really, really great book.
Okay. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
like, that one sounded, I loved the title. So I'm like, I just
Yes.
want to know a little bit more about it. Perfect.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much for bringing those. The listeners love to
Yeah.
hear what the guests are reading. How I love to end our show is with a speed round of questions you can answer really quick. Are
Okay.
you a rereader?
I'm not.
Too many good books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like to go on to the next thing. Yeah.
Yeah. What is one book you've read that has changed your life?
Um, Strangers by Belle Burden. And it was a recent one, but yeah.
Yeah.
Whew.
Love it. Where is your favorite place to read?
Well, I do a lot of car listening. I don't know if that's my favorite place, but I would say like on vacation by the pool is ideal.
There you go. Getting a little bit of time for mom. Lastly, what are you reading next?
What am I reading next? I've got it. American Fantasy by Emma Straub.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yes. I saw that one just recently. I was like, oh, she
Yeah.
has the great covers.
A great cover. I know.
Yeah,
That always gets me too. It's a good cover.
absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show with me this morning. I know your time is
Yeah.
precious, and I appreciate all you've given me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for listening to this episode today with Emily Ann Paulson. Her book flight includes books about influencer families. You can find all the books that we talked about today at bookishflights.com. If you enjoyed the show, please head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review. Your review not only helps the show, but it also helps the podcast to reach others. Make sure you are subscribed on Apple Podcasts or Spotify to make sure you will not miss an episode. That's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. As Emma Thompson said, I think books are like people in the sense that they'll turn up in your life when you most need them. Cheers to you, dear readers. Until next time.